The Boondock Saints became a giant cult hit when it hit home video. The film seemed to come out of nowhere really, and no one seemed to remember its theatrical run, but word of mouth soon made the film a gigantic hit. Why was this film so unknown? A multitude of factors played into this mystery. Bad timing of the release, possibly bad word of mouth from a very famous studio head, and the biggest problem with the whole thing, the writer-director. Ego can be a hell of a problem. Let's find out exactly what happened to the Boondock Saints here on What the Fuck Happened to This Movie? Troy Duffy had moved out of Los Angeles to try and find success with his band, The Brood. They booked gigs playing in numerous taverns but hadn't made much headway in securing a studio contract. While he waited for his big moment to happen, he got a job slinging drinks at the bar J. Sloan's. While not at work, he lived in an apartment building where he would constantly witness guns and drugs making their way down the hallways. He finally got fed up one day when he said he witnessed a drug dealer stealing money off a corpse. Duffy said he and his brother used to fantasize about being able to actually do something about all the disgusting stuff they had seen happening around them. This gave him an idea for a movie. He said that writing the movie was almost a form of therapy, since he couldn't stop all the crimes he saw happening around him and the victims it left in its wake. During breaks at his bartending job, he began to write out different scenes. He says he wrote it in 3 parts. The first part was the setup, then he said he spent time coming up with ideas for the second part, and that third part pretty much dictated itself. When the screenplay was done, he showed it to a friend of his that was a producer's assistant at New Line Cinema. He passed it on to his boss, who read it and loved it. After a while, the script made its way to all the major studios. What happened was that suddenly an all-out bidding war began for the property. Troy Duffy could have picked any studio he wanted to produce the film. In the Boondock Saints, fraternal twin brothers Connor and Murphy get caught up in the Russian mob trying to take over the pub they are in celebrating St. Patrick's Day. The 2 brothers end up killing these Russians. They turn themselves in, and the FBI agent investigating the case, Paul Smecker, interviews them. Finding they have acted in self-defense, he lets them go. The brothers believe that they have been given a sign from God to punish wicked men and help the innocent. What ensues is the brothers attempting to take out high-ranking members of the Russian mob with their new friend Rocco. One of the bosses hires a hitman, known only as El Duce, to track the brothers down and take them out. As they begin to get more and more notoriety for their deeds and support for their holy mission, their enemies begin to close in, and all hope may be lost. Duffy seemed to jump right into the spotlight after his script became a coveted item in Hollywood. He had every major film studio offering him more money than the last to get their hands on it. When he looked over the different offers that were coming in, he decided he wanted to do the movie his way. While it wasn't the biggest offer on the table, Miramax offered up $450,000 for the script, a $15 million budget for the film that he would be allowed to direct. His band would be hired to do the soundtrack, and as a bonus, Miramax head honcho Harvey Weinstein would buy the bar that Duffy worked at for both of them to co-own. The deal was a big one, and even made it on the cover of USA Today. It was labeled as a rags to riches story and highlighted Duffy as the new big player on the block. To document the whole process, Duffy asked his friends Tony Montana,
say hello to my little friend,
and Mark Bryan Smith to film a documentary about the movie. They began to follow him around and found out very quickly that Troy Duffy was very full of himself and his newfound talent. Hollywood stars began to hang out at Duffy's bar in hopes of getting to know the new hot filmmaker. This leads Duffy to have a giant ego. While he is deciding on his cast, Duffy decides to run down the list of some of the actors he's considering for the movie. He mentions Brad Pitt, but says he already played an Irishman in The Devil's Own and he hated his accent. Ethan Hawke comes up but calls him, quote, a talentless fool. Finally, Keanu Reeves is mentioned, who he labels a, quote, fucking punk. Not exactly making friends in Hollywood. Some of the actors he actually did consider for the twin brothers in the film, he included Stephen Dorff, Brendan Fraser, Nicky Katt, and Ewan McGregor. Duffy flew to New York to talk to McGregor about the film. He planned on offering one of the lead roles to him that night. After a night out, a drunk Duffy got into an argument about the use of the death penalty. Because of this, McGregor passed. For the FBI agent Paul Smecker, Duffy was considering Patrick Swayze, Robert De Niro, Kevin Spacey, or Kenneth Branagh. Miramax, however, actually wanted to use Sylvester Stallone, Bill Murray, or Mike Myers. They obviously were not seeing eye to eye with some of this casting. As time wore on, Duffy began to get annoyed that the film took so long to get moving. In the documentary, Duffy's seen multiple times calling Harvey Weinstein's office and screaming on the phone at his assistant. This caused Miramax to put the film on hold and eventually drop out of the deal altogether. While Weinstein is the equivalent of human garbage, at the time, he was one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. Making him mad enough to drop the film was not a good move for Duffy. The entire scenario now put the movie in jeopardy, in addition to his band's hopeful record deal, and the deal to buy the bar never ended up happening. As Duffy began to seek new financing for the film, he began to wonder if Weinstein had blacklisted him from Hollywood. The offers from the other studios never returned after his break with Miramax. He is convinced that Weinstein was keeping him from getting the film made. After some haggling, he finally decided to go into business with Franchise Pictures. The budget they offered for the film was less than half of what Miramax had originally promised. He took the deal and started working on the film anyway. During this time, his relationship with his bandmates and other partners began to break down. On camera, he is seen telling everyone they wouldn't be paid until the film was done, and eventually said that none of them deserved to be paid at all. His abusive behavior became more erratic as the filming of the documentary went on. He finally got the film cast with Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus playing the brothers. Willem Dafoe signed on to play FBI agent Paul Smecker, and Billy Connolly as Il Duce. Connolly was excited to do the project as he would finally get to play against type as an evil hitman. The film shot most of its scenes in Toronto, with a few select ones in Boston. Duffy stated that when he sent back dailies of the scene where Flannery's character throws the toilet off the side of the building, they hated it. It was in slow motion and they were considering firing him off the project. He was able to edit the scene together and put the music behind it that is seen in the film, and that calmed them down. When the film was finally done, they began to shop it around. Just as they were setting up screenings for distribution companies in Colorado, a horrible tragedy began to unfold. Two students would load themselves up with multiple guns and shoot up their high school. The shooting was all over the news, as at the time, school shootings were still rare. Even the ones that were reported were not of this magnitude. There started to be a discussion about the role that violent movies and video games played in such events. Movies like The Matrix and The Basketball Diaries were shown as examples of characters participating in fantasies of shooting their teacher, or showing the main characters using machine guns in cool slow motion on screen. Suddenly, every American film company wanted nothing to do with any projects with the high use of guns. No one wanted the bad press that would go with releasing a violent movie that fetishized the use of guns after the Columbine shooting. The Boondock Saints was taken to the Cannes Film Festival a month after the incident in hopes to find a distributor. Every major studio from the US turned down the movie. A small company would finally pick the movie up, but only put the film out for a limited run in theaters. It ran in 5 theaters for 7 days. After that, it went to the home video market. 20th Century Fox would pick up the rights for video and strike a deal to make the film a blockbuster exclusive. The film was dead on arrival. The hope and promise that the initial bidding war the script created didn't seem fulfilled. Those involved with the film believed they thought they had made a great movie. Timing and soured relationships doomed the film to be lost in history, and the film faded into obscurity. Except it didn't.
There was a firefight!
People began renting the movie, and suddenly more people were, and more, and more. The word of mouth began to push the film forward to find its audience. It quickly rose on the rental charts, becoming the eventual cult classic we know it as today. Over its initial home video release, it would rack up a whopping $50 million. That was almost unheard of at the time for a movie no one seemed to have heard of before it hit rental shelves. The film became a complete success. Well, almost complete. Some people were left out of the home video fun. When Troy Duffy signed his original contract with Franchise Pictures, it didn't include any royalties from home video sales. Not a single penny would make its way to Duffy. He would later file a lawsuit against Franchise and other undisclosed companies, stating that neither he, his producers, nor his principal cast got paid for the film. The lawsuit went on for a long time, but finally ended when Duffy and everyone else involved got an undisclosed amount of royalty payments. The decision also included Duffy winning back the rights to produce a sequel. In 2009, the movie The Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day, would be released in theaters. It would make $11 million against an $8 million budget. While it didn't set the box office on fire, it did give fans what they had hoped to see: more Saints. When it hit home video, it seems that the audience was eagerly awaiting it just as they had the first. This film would also bring in $50 million in home video sales.
Daddy's work.
There, of course, has been talk of a third film. Duffy has stated multiple times that it was being worked on, and then he had hoped to get it into pre-production soon. After some back and forth, in 2017, Sean Patrick Flanery stated that he and Norman Reedus had walked away from the project. He cited the unethical production as their reasoning. The talk of the sequel died down, but back in 2021, Troy Duffy once again stated that the third film was moving ahead with Flanery and Reedus back. Production was supposed to start in May 2022, but there's been no word on that since. This very condensed video can only shine a small light of what really happened during the making of The Boondock Saints. The documentary Overnight about the making of the film and Troy Duffy's experiences making it is a must-watch for any Boondock Saints fan. Let it be a cautionary tale to not let you be the one that nearly destroys the very dreams you hope to create. Troy Duffy has gotten to make a couple of films, which is more than most. Let's just hope he cherishes the chances he's been given. And now, let us pray.
In nomine Patri,
et Filii, Spiritus Sancti.